My casinos are spending multi-millions of dollars to have a sports wagering tax. With all fairness to all of you, once we open that door, people are going to take advantage of it. So whether the tax that the gaming board has proposed is the right one, not sure, but it's something to say, I don't want to be taxed. I don't want to pay fees. You want the privilege to do business in Illinois. Guess what? You're going to pay for that privilege. But I'm just going to leave it there.
That is State Senator Christina Castro yesterday during a Senate committee on gaming, where the conversation was a range of things to limit how much people can bet on sports and even to start taxing and regulating fantasy sports. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Not the only thing a Senate committee tackled. The Liquor Committee also tackled different issues about liquor distribution, but they're also looking to regulate hemp-infused products like hemp drinks that could be intoxicating. All right, so let's get into it. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. You want these headlines and more, go to thecentersquare.com and wake up with that newsletter each and every weekday morning in your inbox. It's free. Plus, you can watch this program live each and every weekday morning or catch the segments on YouTube. Just like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So the Senate's been off this week, but they have been holding committee hearings. They've got some more committee hearings later on throughout the week, and they've been virtual hearings. So looking at a bunch of people hopping in on Zoom and discussing things. They had a Senate gambling and wagering and sports betting committee that tackled a host of legislation and not moving it, but just having conversations about it. One measure would say that sports books, they have to limit how much people can bet per day. Only 5 bets a day. Then there's things that they are looking at doing of limiting like $1,000 or something like that for a certain period of time, $10,000 for a month or something to that effect, but also having the sports books make sure that whoever's betting a lot of money is financially secure and able to do that. State Senator Bill Cunningham said that there's a lot of things at play here, and they worry that, especially when gambling is expanded, the impacts on society.
We're anxious to get input from other stakeholder groups within this space, and we are open to making modifications to the bill. But I think it's time that this form of beverage be entered into.
Well, that is actually Bill Cunningham talking about the cannabis stuff. Let me see if I can come over here and talk about the wagering stuff. Again, live to tape, folks.
Senate Bill 2399 seeks to reach a similar goal by putting limitations on the number of bets and the amount that can be wagered, puts other safeguards in place that exist in other states that have online sports wagering, like prohibition of using credit cards. Again, all designed to put brakes in place and safeguards in place to prevent problem gambling. We've seen a number of studies that have been done. Academia has taken a look at this, has examined states that have online sports wagering and other forms of online wagering in place. And they have cited increases in bankruptcy filings in a number of the states, even some evidence of increased reports of domestic violence. Now, causation correlation debate is going on, and it's still kind of early in this process, so I don't think we can leap to any conclusions yet. But we definitely have to be cognizant of this as policymakers and regulators. I will say that a number of operators in the sports wagering space have recognized.
So, some recognition of the ills and ails of gambling. We expanded gambling quite a bit in Illinois when it comes to video gaming terminals. And here in Springfield, you go down the street, and it's like every other block, there's 2 or 3 gambling parlors. Interesting, though, up in Chicago, there's not, because Chicago never opted in to allow for video gambling. And they're struggling right now with sweepstakes machines. And this committee did have some conversation about the sweepstakes issues, especially because it's been part of different types of corruption cases where people have actually been found guilty of trying to bribe other lawmakers to allow for sweepstakes machines to be more legitimized. So how how the sports wagering space could be impacted by putting caps on how much can be bet on, and even taxing sports wagering even more with a progressive tax. That's been floated as well, and I think it's even part of the governor's proposed budget. So when it comes to these types of things, you may not see the actual implementation of it until we get to the budget late May, and then they'll bring out the budget implementation bill. So they're just having these initial conversations about these ideas. But you have Tim Jensen of Real-Time Fantasy Sports. He's not a fan of the taxes that are being proposed that fantasy sports operators would have to pay if they want to have an operation in Illinois. I don't really watch sports at all. I mean, I kind of like UFC, but it's not like I seek it out. If a game's or if a bout is on, I might watch it, but it's not like I set aside time to do anything like that. I don't sports bet, so I couldn't really tell you much about that. Definitely don't do the fantasy sports stuff. So I don't know. To each their own, right? But I know a lot of people who love it and they get into it and they play fantasy sports. But Tim Jensen of Real-Time Fantasy Sports testifying to this committee yesterday saying that they would be out of business if they had to pay the taxes that are being proposed.
We are opposed to SB 2145 and its proposed $500,000 licensing fee. As a season-long operator, we collect fees once at the fantasy draft at the beginning of the season and distribute prizes once at the end of the season after the league championship game. As a smaller operator, we have hundreds of loyal Illinois players that have been with us for years, if not decades. However, the $500,000 licensing fee exceeds our total gross revenue for the state of Illinois and would effectively lock us out of the state.
Shut them down. No question. It's a lot of money. We're talking about fantasy sports. We're not talking about professional sports here, even though it's based off professional sports. Bart Clellan with Net Choice, also there to testify about this measure virtually in a Senate committee hearing.
Sports industry already earns merely a fraction of what the wealthy sportsbook industry does. Some of those behemoths we heard about from the Madam Chair earlier. So this level of taxation most certainly will suppress the ability of fantasy sports to compete in a robust entertainment marketplace and may even permanently harm the ability of companies to deliver the exact products that Illinois consumers already love. The overbearing tax structure designed for the sports books fails to recognize the smaller margins and revenue limitations on fantasy sports. And stunning to me, fantasy platforms earn about 1/30th of the revenue of sports books. So this kind of tax structure, amazing perhaps for these big behemoths, not so much for middle and small size and innovative companies. So unfortunately, in addition, the SB 2145 bans popular single-player fantasy sports contest, runs counter to where most of the country is going and starting to allow these contests because of consumer demand.
So clearly a lot being said about fantasy sports, but State Senator Christina Castro said, if you guys want to operate in Illinois, you got to pay to play.
My casinos are spending multi-millions of dollars to have a sports wagering tax. With all fairness to all of you, once we open that door, people are going to take advantage of it. So whether the tax that the gaming board has proposed is the right one, not sure, but it's something to say, I don't want to be taxed. I don't want to pay fees. You want the privilege to do business in Illinois. Guess what? You're going to pay for that privilege. But I'm just going to leave it there.
Guess it's something that we see often in government and in private enterprise, and government wanting to make sure that they can get funds to fund whatever operations they have as priorities. So they will then level fines, penalties, and taxes on the private enterprise. So that was just one of several gambling bills that they discussed in the Senate Gambling Committee. Then later on in the day, they had the Senate Liquor Committee meet virtually. And they discussed a whole host of things, from making sure that those who are craft distillers can get their products direct to customers instead of having to go through a retailer or having to go through a certain type of regulatory framework. So they had a long conversation about that. They had other conversations about distributing craft brew and so on. But one thing that really took a lot of attention was the idea of regulating hemp-infused intoxicating beverages. All right, so Illinois legalized medicinal marijuana. Gosh, what was that, a decade plus ago? And then in 2019, they legalized recreational marijuana. And then you had the U.S. Farm Bill, I believe this was 2018, essentially allow for industrial hemp to be produced. And that opened up the gates to allow for people to grow hemp and find different types of products. You can make textiles and fabrics and oils and all kinds of stuff. Feed for livestock, but you can also make smokable hemp, and people are even driving things like Delta 8 and Delta 9, I think, is that what it is? But there's also concerns about how these hemp products are getting into convenience stores and being labeled like candy, and some kids getting their hands on it. And some of these hemp products, while it might be low THC, it still has some intoxicating qualities to it. So they're wanting to try to regulate this, especially as more and more you have a focus on different types of hemp products like hemp-infused beverages. State Senator Bill Cunningham saying that this is an issue that needs to be addressed as the popularity of these products grows and grows.
We're anxious to get input from other stakeholder groups within this space, and we are open to making modifications to the bill. But I think it's time that this form of beverage be entered into the regulatory space, and we think this is a good way to do it.
So he wants to have some regulation. Now, they tried bringing this up last year, but there was a lot of consternation, good word for you, a lot of conflict in the House. And there were even stories that when the governor, who supports this type of legislation, tried to send his staff to go talk to a House Democratic caucus, it would turn into a yelling match. And a lot of the black caucus opposing these regulations on hemp, because the hemp industry is saying, hey, we can't get into the legal marijuana business because it's so expensive. The regulations are over the top. It's really only allowed for the big conglomerates to be able to come in and buy out smaller operations. So the hemp industry is something that minority communities are able to get into and to thrive. And if they have more regulations, it's going to make it that much more difficult. So Justin Ward of the Illinois Healthy Alternatives Association, also a farmer, he discussed how these types of regulations on the hemp industry are really going to hurt and possibly impact the economy in a negative way.
We strongly oppose the proposed three-tier system included in the bill, which would prevent hemp producers from selling directly to consumers. This system mirrors that of alcohol and would force small hemp businesses to rely on distributors, effectively limiting their market access. For small businesses like those in our association, this would be a major obstacle. The ability to engage directly with consumers has been a critical part of our growth and success.
So obviously, some of the regulations that are being proposed here, limiting or having them go through the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Ag, and elsewhere, testing products and having a variety of different types of hoops they got to jump through. Clearly, when it comes to growing hemp, they have to have checks, and one of the commenters does point out that you have to have a license to grow hemp in the state. True, and they do come out and they test the hemp products. They test the hemp products for certain levels of THC, and if there's just a notch above that certain level allowed, then you got to destroy all the hemp. But still, you have hemp thriving in Illinois when it comes to the production of it. But more regulations would do more impact. So all of this obviously is an ongoing conversation, something that we'll likely hear a lot more about as we get closer to the tail end of session, and we'll keep you posted here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, get the headlines at thecentersquare.com with the newsletter, and get the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus and you'll find it.